Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the long-awaited iMind. How are you guys doing today?
How are you guys?
Great.
Are you guys nervous, dear participants?
No.
Okay. Well, don't be because we will be the ones who accompany you on today's debate session. But before that, let us introduce ourselves. I'm Alexa Zevania.
And I'm Anastasia Unica, and we will be your MCs for today's event. So, do you guys have any idea about what we are going to do today? Of course, you guys, you do. We believe your mentors have already given a comprehensive elaboration regarding today's agenda.
So, before we begin to the main session, let us briefly explain to you all about iMind, which is what we are doing right now. So basically, iMind is a collaborative event of Program Studi Ilmu Hubungan Internasional Unpar with International Relations English Club or IREC, which is a vocational group under Himpunan Mahasiswa Program Studi Ilmu Hubungan Internasional or HMPSIH.
Through this program, IREC seeks to provide the place and the time for you guys to have a semi-formal discussion. Also, the purpose of this discussion is not to find which side is going to be the winner, but to find the middle ground between the two perspectives of the topic given.
Talking about topics, Nika, do you have any clue about what is the issue that will be debated in today's iMind program?
Of course, I do. So, the topic that is going to be the highlight of today's discussion is Beyond Meat, Eating for the Environment. So, recently, Alexa, there's a new discourse about transitioning to a new lifestyle where people decrease their consumption of meat since the production of it bring out methane that has some negative impacts on environmental sustainability. It is also well known that methane is 120 times more dangerous for the atmosphere compared with the carbon dioxide. But there's also an opposite side who believes that the reduction of meat consumption is not necessarily an effective way to reduce carbon emissions. So that disagreement is what we're going to talk about today.
Oh, I see. That's quite interesting on how they could relate to one another. But so to make them all calm and relaxed, we're going to do some ice breaking first so they don't get too tense.
Okay, sounds cool. So, what we're going to do for the ice breaking, Alexa?
Today we will play a game called Continue the Story. The rules of this game are quite simple, so you just have to continue the sentence from your friends. But you have to make sure that the words are connected in order to create an interesting story. But you have to make a story according to the topic that we have chosen.
Yeah, so all of you guys will continue the sentences from other people, and we will give you guys all 1 minute to make an interesting story. We hope you guys can make an entertaining story for all of us.
Okay. To make it more clear, maybe we can give them more examples.
Okay, should we start now? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, the theme for this pre-game is horror mention. Okay, so can you start first, Alexa?
Okay, horror mention. Yesterday I went to a haunted house.
Okay, let me take first. Okay. And I feel like something is right behind my back.
And then I feel a sudden urge in my adrenaline to run.
While I ran, I decided to take a little peek of my back.
And I can see something flying behind me.
Okay,
That's
We're
cool, right?
gonna need to make a story that suits the theme. Okay.
Yeah.
So wait, do you guys get the example? Is the example clear enough for you guys? Okay. Then if it's clear,
Then if it is clear enough for you, can we just start now?
okay.
Are you guys ready to the participants?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's go then. So the theme of our story is college romance. The order of who tells the story can start from here. Then you can continue and so on to other participants and
The theme is college romance.
college romance.
Yeah.
College romance.
College romance. Yes.
Okay, so the 1 minute will start from now.
I went to my campus and I sat on the elevator.
And while I'm in the elevator, I stopped at floor 2A and saw a girl walking into the elevator.
I looked her in the eyes and I thought that I might be falling in love with her.
Okay.
Then suddenly, the elevator stopped in another floor, and another girl stepped in.
very happy and really thought about asking her out for a date.
Oh. But then the girl walked.
Since we already had fun and the tension is all gone now, let us jump into a more serious and more formal part, which is opening speeches. To get started, let us
Personally have been interested in for, I don't know, maybe a few years now. And I think this should be brought up into the surface, and there should be more conversations about this, because there's like, I feel like, especially now, there's more and more prejudice towards people who choose a certain lifestyle, in this case vegan, just because of I don't know, they, like, people who are not vegan, they think that they are too idealistic with their values and so on and so forth. But of course, with your
participants, to all the staff members, of course, that have been together and with me to creating iMind and possibly make this happen. I actually don't have words right now because I'm very excited. But I have some words from my Indri that, unfortunately cannot come because she has another important discussion. So I will read what she will say to you all. So she said that she are thankful for the participants to participate in this very important debate under the topics that right now are very much.
Remind everyone of the rules for the upcoming debate and discussion. So the first rule is that the participants should be speaking in English. And second, please everyone refrain from using inappropriate language. And the third is that participants should respect the moderators and the staff.
Daniel and I will be the moderator for today's session of semi-formal discussion of IREC iMind 2022. Now, before we start, I would like to remind you all to please adhere to the rules as stated before. And now, without further ado, let's start with the first notion of all meat consumption should be replaced with a plant-based diet.
The question was all meat consumption should be replaced by a plant-based diet. I disagree with the statement because I think that not everyone can suddenly replace their their prepared meal style with vegan meals. Because I feel like me myself, I'm a meat eater, and I don't think I can suddenly replace every meat meal with something else. And I think that it's also very ineffective. I feel like if you replace every meat meal with vegan meals, because it's not. I mean, I guess it can help the environment in some way, but there are other factors that I think will affect the climate change even more than just a plant-based diet. And there are also nutrition factors that I feel like people need. And with plant-based diets, unless they get proper proper prescriptions, I guess, for the pills and stuff that they get from meat, they won't be able to get that fully without eating meat.
In my opinion, changing meat to plant-based meat offers a number of benefits, but also has some downsides that you may want to know. They can contain higher amounts of sodium as compared to animal meat. They lack the nutrients that you get with animal-based meat, but you can take health supplements to maintain the nutrients in your body. Many packaged plant-based types of meat contain ingredients that you may not want to consume, like added sugar, refined oil, dextrose, or modified cornstarch. Some plant-based meat are more expensive than average animal-based meats. That's it.
Hi everyone, my name is Sasha and I'm from IREC. I think I should introduce myself first before expressing my opinion. So the issue was about whether meat consumption should be replaced with a plant-based diet or not. I disagree with that statement because I agree with the points that my fellow peers have mentioned, that there are some nutrients that might not be in vegetables as much as meat does. And also I think I need to raise the issue of the inequality in having a vegan lifestyle, since I think turning vegan, that means that you gotta replace the nutrients that you once, you obtained from meat into like other like supplements or things like that. Because as he mentioned before, vegetables sometimes don't have enough nutrients that our body needs, and every person has different needs, like how much nutrition they need in their body. And that means they need to buy supplements, and supplements can be quite expensive. And I think there's also a really great disparity if everyone should replace their diet into like an all vegetable diet, because people who live in remote areas, they might not have the access to healthy and vegetables that are good for their body, or maybe in the place that they live, they can't even grow a lot of crops and a variety of crops that they might need for their bodies. So they have to resort to hunting, which means they have to consume meat. So they don't really have a choice besides consuming meat. So yes, that's my stance. Thank you.
Due to the economic disparity that many people face around the world, it is unrealistic or even impossible for those people to gain access to many vegan options and plant-based options. So the cheapest option is for them to resort to meat products such as chicken, beef, duck, or whatever is readily available. Secondly, geography, because not everybody lives in an area where crop production is quite possible, or a huge variety of crop production is possible. They need to resort to eating meat. Otherwise, they will not be able to fully sustain themselves. Secondly, for the health reasons, is because not only does vegetable does not contain as many health benefits as meat, or maybe nutrients or the likes, but also because some people have certain diets or maybe certain medical conditions that do not allow them to go full vegan. Because, like, for example, if someone has kidney problems or whatever the sort, they are not permitted by their doctors to.
Thank you. Let me introduce myself again. My name is Jason. I personally think that having an all plant-based diet is not sustainable due to the fact that there are a lot of economic reasons and geographical reasons which have been mentioned by previous speakers before. But probably I will sort of take into another different side of point of view. According to a study, there is a sort of indication that having a plant-based diet, by having plant-based diet, it increases the energy cost by 38%. It increases the water cost by 10%, and I think that the demand for those resources are not viable to begin with.
Plan for plants, but more to like, since I read the file, it said that for now 70% is more towards meat and like the livestock production. So I think that what I mean by prioritizing is, for now, I think we should try to equal that level by increasing the land space for plants, for the production of plants and crops, and instead of just 70% being, which is a majority, I think that livestock can in fact affect climate change in a big way, even though I said before that it might not be.
My question to Rafa is, do you think that prioritizing land use for crops is a necessity in all over the world, or only in some specific or certain parts of the world? Thank you.
It's a pretty easy answer. I mean, I'm not like a pro at knowing every region of the world, but I think I mean, as long as like not every country is dominated by livestock production, then I think that it's fine if they remain with their
should be banned. I repeat, deforestation for grazing purposes should be banned. Participants who agree with this notion may now raise their hand. You may now lower your hand. Okay, first of all, I would like to give the floor to Rafa to state her opinion. Rafa, you may now have the floor.
I think that I agree with the sentence that deforestation for grazing purposes should be banned. Because I feel like any land that's used for livestock grazing is unethical, and that's why. I mean, it's pretty simple that I think that that's why it should be banned, just for unethical reasons.
In my opinion, deforestation is harmful for the environment because it causes a lot of carbon emissions and alters the natural ecosystem. It also contributes to global warming and climate change because plants release the stored carbon into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide when they are cutting down.
I think I just disagree with deforestation in general. I think that livestock grazing has been a practice that has endured for millions of years, and there used to be a time where there was no need for deforestation to allow these livestock to graze and get their food. So I believe that instead of deforestation, we should develop a sustainable way to repurpose the land that has already been used for livestock grazing and just continue to use that land because I think it's possible. Thank you.
So we all know that deforestation is a bad phenomenon that is currently happening all over the world. And pairing deforestation with the already negative impact from the cattle industry is just the recipe for disaster because already the emissions from deforestation and cattle industry combined will result in a huge increase in environmental pollution and catastrophe. So I think deforestation just to achieve more lands for cattle industry is very, very bad. It's a very bad idea. And I think a more sustainable option rather than deforestation is to reuse the land that's already available, because the cattle industry, although it has many negative environmental impact, it also has the advantage of being able to implement the technique of recycling land, because the cattle industry is not very soil degrading, as in cattle excess feces and whatnot can be used to create fertilizers, natural fertilizers, and so those fertilizers can be used for the benefit of the soil around cattle. So I think deforestation is a very bad. I can't find the word. It's on the tip of my tongue. Well, deforestation is a very bad decision to make when when it's paired with cattle industry, and I think recycling land is the more environmentally conscious method in land usage when it comes to the cattle industry. Thank you.
I disagree with deforestation to change it for any sort of farming purposes, even for vegetables, let alone farms for beef, or farms for pork, or farms for other type of animals. I think that there is a certain consequences directed to it, which is ecological changes. And right now, according to a study, malaria is a very significant factor when it comes to ecological changes, because the areas that were formerly a forest, or especially a rainforest, was now changed, and then the species of mosquitoes there, they were having a sort of sudden change of habitat there, and it causes diseases such as fever or even other particular types of viruses. And according to a study, malaria killed 405,000 people in 2018. And when humans change dramatically the ecological system in forests, they actually destroy the diversity in mosquito species, and then the species that survives became dominant, and then the temperature of the water is higher, which benefits to the mosquitoes itself. And secondly, according to a new study, not only malaria, but ecological system changes like this, especially forests, it's linked to the destruction of nature, of course, and it's also linked to the spread of COVID-19 pandemic. Because according to UNEP in April 2020, the link between wildlife trade, nature destruction, and other sorts of things that are linked with the destruction of forests are causing the outbreak of COVID-19 to spread quicker. So I think that is my point.
Thank you so much, Jason, for your opinion. Now, before we continue, we have once again run out of time on this set of discussion. Any participant who wishes to further this set of discussion may now raise their hand. Okay, seeing as none of the participants wishes to further the discussion on this set of notion specifically, we can see that there's indeed again a middle ground where everyone generally agreed that banning deforestation will be good for the environment, as deforestation is bad for the environment, especially paired with the cow industry. It can also trigger diseases and ecological change risks, which will impact human badly in the future. We will now move on to the next notion. Now, the fourth notion will be less meat consumption will significantly reduce greenhouse gases emission. I repeat, less meat consumption will significantly reduce greenhouse gases emission. Participants who agree with the notion may now raise their hand. You may now lower your hand.
Like the whole population stops eating meat, then it will help stop the meat production as well. But that will affect like the economy right away, because like it will shock the meat production companies. So I think meat industries, right?
So obviously, it is not a secret that the cattle industry contributes to a lot of greenhouse emissions in the world, and while it is true that less meat consumptions
The arguments made by Risky. I think that if we decrease the meat consumption and then we raise the plant-based consumption, I think that it will create problems to the soil degradation, which is a problem, which is a very mitigating factor for climate change. However, I also would like to agree with Risky that it is not it is not a relevant or significant factor that sort of creates if we suddenly decrease the production of meat and we increase the production of plants. I think that is my response.
Efforts to reduce the emissions, because I think that most people who do this, who attempt to have plant-based diets, they are very environmentally conscious people, so they're probably not gonna go on a vegan lifestyle alone, but they're probably gonna shift their other aspects of their lifestyle as well. For example, reducing the use of fossil fuels by maybe preferring to walk to their destination or choose public transport over private transportation. So does less meat consumption reduce?
In my opinion, I think if we compare to the livestock gas emission anymore, it was much more sustainable and less damaging to the environment. The chemicals that humans produce for the agricultural sector are way more damaging to the environment, while animals are part of the natural environment. We have to acknowledge that the fact that livestock is part of the ecosystem which helps Earth heal itself from the destruction made by humans. So we cannot blame cattle and sheep for the environment. So if we talk about the cattle or cows, it's also 19% of the water of cows consumed is returned to the land, which are powerful natural fertilizer that maintain soil integrity and fertility. So I think to respond to this fact that to this narrative that livestock is bad for environment, I think I would not disagree because by eliminating the meat, it's not like the effective solution. There are more factors than just reduce the meat consumption. Thank you.
We will now move on to the next set of notions, but before that, we can see that middle ground has been reached once again, I apologize, where it is not realistic to eliminate the whole cow industry in general, and it would be significant. It wouldn't give a significant impact to the environment if we only eliminate the cow industry. Livestock itself is also part of the ecosystem, which we cannot eliminate altogether. I thank formal discussion session with the fifth notion. Now, we will begin with the notion of animal waste can be repurposed to benefit the environment. I repeat, animal waste can be repurposed to benefit the environment. Participants who agree with the notion may now raise their hand. You may now lower your hand.
I totally agree with the stance that animal waste can be repurposed to benefit the environment because they can be used for fertilizers, and I think compost is a little and I think that it's pretty obvious that it will help the environment because it's repurposing something that may just negatively affect climate change. So if we're repurposing that, then I think it's great. But I think that there has to be some sort of like funding or like an arrangement for the financing, because I think that even though it will help the environment, I don't think it's possible for it to happen without like the financing to back that up. Because I don't think like a lot of industries focus on helping the environment. So I think that if there is a certain arrangement for financing, then I think that it would be really great.
Animal waste comes from a variety of sources, including livestock, dairy production, and poultry. It can also be generated from the production of meat processing, and fish farming. This waste is a concern to the environment as it is organic matter which contains disease that contaminate and pollute drinking water, causing illness which are potentially fatal for humans and destroy ecosystems in natural habits. That's why animal waste contains high amounts of fiber which can be used for making a number of products such as plant pots, paper, and building materials. By reusing the animal waste, you are preventing from entering the environment and polluting it, whilst saving other materials being produced for making those products. Thank you.
So I think one of the most common uses when it comes to repurposing animal waste is into natural fertilizer. And I think we briefly mentioned this before, that chemical pesticides and fertilizers can be also bad for the environment. So I think this is a very good way to try to solve that aspect of the environmental issue by repurposing animal waste into fertilizer, because animal waste, if left alone, it can emit a lot of greenhouse gas emissions, which is again bad for our environment. So I think it's a good way to continue the cycle instead of just wasting a potential into something that can potentially damage the environment. So thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I agree with this statement. Even though it is something that most agricultural countries are not doing right to, taking into account their status quo and capabilities as a developing country to implement such expensive policies, I think the lack of infrastructure can also happen with the production process in more advanced plant-based to fulfill our body's needs. So I think it's good to the farmers and companies to repurpose the animal waste to the benefit to the environment. The government can cooperate with NGOs and NGOs to fill the gap by educational programs for the farmers and companies for infrastructure investment that can also raise the national income. Other than that, bilateral cooperation might also help countries to balance their demand on both animal-based and plant-based foods. Thank you.
Thank you. So, as my colleagues here have stated, that there are many benefits that can be gained from managing and repurposing animal waste. But I think one of the hidden potentials that we haven't touched on is the energy potential, because actually animal waste has the potential for biomass, which is one of the leading green energy sources, which I think could also greatly contribute to the decrease of gas emissions, because if we repurpose animal waste to biomass, we can cut back the production of fossil fuel energies and also coal energies, like those sort of non-renewables, those sort of energies produced by non-renewables, we can cut down and instead use animal waste for biomass and also hydro energy, as well as solar energy and other renewable energy. So I think besides the capabilities of becoming fertilizers, animal waste can also be beneficial in through the energy sector by converting it to biomass. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
I think I agree with the, what is the motion, sorry?
The motion is animal waste can be repurposed to benefit the environment.
I think I agree with the notion that animal waste can be repurposed to benefit the environment, especially when it comes to the cycle of how actually cattle contributed towards the environment. For example, there are soils that are full of grasses. They actually did some photosynthesis, and then when the grass did some photosynthesis, they actually sequestered the carbon inside the soil, and then when it comes to the cattle actually sort of gives important and healthy bacteria towards the grasses, and it also increases the soil quality, and it's also reducing the effects for soil degradation, which is again, as I've mentioned before, it is very vital towards the prevention of climate change. But I also think that animal waste can be repurposed into a lot of things, aside from fertilizers. It also can be repurposed into energies, for especially if animals such as beef emits a lot of energy in the form of methane. It can be actually recycled into producing energy, and it can help other renewable energies such as hydropower energies to sustain in the future. So I think that animal waste, I support the research of this issue in the future, of how we can recycle animal waste, and then we can use it for our own benefit, for our own
thank all of the participants who have actively been participating in this notion. And we can see that there is indeed a middle ground in this notion, in which repurposing of animal waste is essentially good for the environment, as it can be used for fertilizer, and even more, it has the potential to become biomass energy source, which again reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. However, it does need financing to make this work, so it can be realized in the future. Now, without further ado, we'll move on to the last notion, which is meat production cannot be eradicated despite some environmental damage. I repeat, meat production cannot be eradicated despite some environmental damage. Participants who agree with this notion may now raise their hand. You may now lower your hand.
The food chain, then if we don't even touch the cows at all and just leave them be, then it'll overpopulate, unless we're either gonna kill them for food and we're gonna we're gonna produce them in a good way, or we're just gonna leave them be, and in the end, if they do overpopulate, then we're gonna have to kill them without eating them, and then it's gonna branch out into different problems. So yeah, that's my stance. Thank you.
I agree with the statement that meat industry cannot be eradicated because there are multiple companies around the world that has been producing meats for us humans to consume for decades or even thousands of years. That is why we cannot obliterate the meat production all of a sudden, but we can take time by giving mindset to people not to use or consume meat ever again. Thank you.
Okay, so I think that meat production cannot be eradicated despite some environmental damage. Maybe less consumption of meat can help solve the environment, not solve, but alleviate the environmental damage, but eradication of meat production in general can actually cause environmental damage, because as Rafa mentioned before, it can really disturb the current life cycle and the ecosystem and stuff like that. If we all just stop eating meat, then meat production will stop, and then there's going to be overpopulation of the meat, and what are we going to do with that? There needs to be a balance when it comes to the ecosystem. Ecosystems can sustain if there's a balance. If there's no balance, then it's going to all fall apart. So I believe that it should be balanced, and we cannot just stop meat production just because for some environmental purposes, because it's gonna, in contrast, it's gonna cause environmental damage itself. So that's basic.
Thank you for the opportunity. I agree with this statement. I think humans need to balance their diets, both animal-based and plant-based, since the nutrition value has a significant impact on our body. Aside from the nutrition needed, the cost of changing our habits to consume less meat is quite high. We need the infrastructure and technology to produce plant-based food that has the same nutrition as our body needs from meat. In this case, we would need to replace meat with nutritional substitutes, and in particular for the world estimate 2 billion plus undernourished people. Also, in the other hand, there are some countries that don't have the ability to grow crops. For example, in the UK, 60% of farmland is grassland and unsuitable to grow crops on. Ruminants such as cattle and sheep are the only thing that offer a sustainable way to produce food from this land, such as dairy and meat. Thank you.
Alright, thank you. So, meat consumption cannot be eradicated because of the economic factors. So, let's say for example, just 4 countries, Indonesia, Argentina, Brazil, and Australia. These countries have such a huge cattle industry that the eradication of meat consumption, which will lead ultimately to the dissolution of the cattle industry, is completely out of the question for these countries. And so many countries like them who have such a huge cattle economy. So, like for example, Indonesia has a huge chicken industry. Australia with beef, Argentina with lamb, and Brazil with sheep, and those kinds of other industries. They will not be willing to stop the production and consumption of these meat products, because then they will be losing out on a lot of economical revenue, and they will be losing out on a lot of income, and that's just out of the question. So I think there are many factors, but I think one of the most pressing issues towards meat consumption cannot be eradicated is that no country who has such a huge percentage of their economy rely heavily on these industries. They're not willing to dissolve this economy, because that means dissolving a large portion of their income, which is not possible. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
I agree with the notion, because I think that reducing meat consumption is not even sustainable to begin with, because there are cultures who are associated with meat, and there are even religions who are associated with the practice of meat consumption, such as in Islam we have Kurban, which is a culture of embracing meat in itself. But however, I don't really agree that it causes some environmental damage. I think it probably causes a minor environmental damage, because I think we have all agreed in this discussion that the carbon emission emitted by the industry for meat is not really significant at all. So I don't really consider that as a significant environmental damage to begin with. But I also would like to discuss about how it works, because if we look upon the biogenic carbon cycle, if we decrease or we reduce the production for meat, I think that the soil that is supposed to sequester the amount of carbons in the air are not even sequestered at all, because of the quality of the soil, which is degraded, and also the beef or the animals itself will not be there to absorb all those bacteria, and will not emit bacteria relevant for the environment, especially for grass there, because of the fact that those carbon dioxides are not new carbon dioxide that was emitted by, for example, firing wood or something like that. It was a carbon dioxide recycled from the air. So it was the carbon dioxide that was released and restored in a continuous cycle from carbon dioxide from the air into the soil, and then into the consumption of into the animal itself, and then into the air again. So it's a cycle that we are disrupting right here if we decrease meat production. I thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Jason, for your opinion. Now I would like to give the chance to the participants if they wishes to respond or ask a question about the other participant's opinion. Participants who wishes to do so may now raise your hand. Okay, I will now give the floor to Tanya to speak their opinion, and to add a notion which two of the opposing sides agree on, at which I now officially end the semi-formal discussion session. I thank you all and I apologize if I made a lot of mistakes as my job as the moderator. I will now give the floor back to Alexa and Miguel. Alexa and Miguel, you may now.
Okay, thank you everyone for leading the discussion today. Now once again, give a applause for all the participants. Okay, it was a very fun and engaging debate, wasn't it? Yeah, all of you guys have participated very well and succeeded in presenting their respective emotions. And not only that, but you guys also succeeded to find the middle ground of today's issue. So, what have we got for today's debate? Alexa.
So we have several informations about today's debate. The middle ground for each and every of the notions are: the first notion is meat consumption shouldn't be replaced by a plant-based diet because it is unrealistic and there is an impact regarding the economic and geographical disparities. And for the second notion, the middle ground that we have received is that we should equal the level of prioritization by increasing the landscape for production of plants and growing crops instead of livestock. And for the third middle ground is how participants agree that deforestation will impact the environment and human life badly. For the fourth middle ground is that in order to reduce meat consumption, to significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions, it is not realistic to eliminate the whole industry. It can give significant benefits, and if we also do another solutions. For the fifth middle ground, in which repurposing on animal waste is essentially good on environment, however, it does need further financement for it to work in the future. And for the sixth middle ground is regarding how meat production cannot be eradicated despite some environmental damage because people still rely on meat on every aspect.
Okay, I see. So, there are so many things that we could learn from today's debate. Like, all the information is like really eye-opening. I feel like awoken. I'm also lucky to be part of this event.
I do feel exactly the same, Nika. Okay, before we end today's iMind event, we are going to let our Chief of Committee to give tokens of appreciations for our debate's participants. So all the participants, please stand up for your peers to receive the tokens of appreciations.
Please stand up.
For all the participants, please stand up. To the Chief Executive, the floor is yours.
Gak kelihatan.
Karena mau foto.
Is it stop udah recording atau dia? Is it still recording? Ya udahlah, itu dulu. Stop recording dulu terus